As ready as I'll be, bro.
He's sipping.
Sipping
All right.
this.
Episode 15.
No, 16.
16.
Is this? No, it's 15. My bad.
Episode 15. Welcome back to another episode of the Lightdrop podcast, where it's just two homies talking creativity and beyond. My name's Jamil.
My name is Jeff.
What you got for me, man? What you got for me?
I got... Okay, so... I don't know if everyone knows this on the podcast, but I am Kenyan. I was born in Kenya.
I thought you were going to say I am him.
I am... No, I'm not him. I'm not the person I'm about to talk about. But yeah, so I'm Kenyan, and there's this tribe there called the Kalenjin, right? I'm part of the Luo tribe, but there's a tribe there called the Kalenjin, and the runner who everyone knows is from Kenya. He's a marathon runner. His name is Eliud Kipchoge. Kipchoge. Yeah, I think that's how you pronounce it. Sorry if I mispronounced that. But yeah, he's a runner, and he's a great marathon runner. He had a video where he was talking about just giving advice to people, and the interviewer was like, "What would you say is your most important habit or trait or whatever?" And he was like, "You have to know about vitamin N." And the guy's like, "What is that? What is vitamin N?" Because it's like English, so they gotta say vitamin N. So he's like, okay, is it like a performance enhancer or something? He's like, no, it's the word no. He's like, whenever you're doing something, you have to remember to say no to other things, or say no to stopping, say no to like staying up later so you can watch television, so you can, I don't know, enjoy the little bit of your night. But knowing that you have something to do the next morning, you have to take vitamin N, right? And I just thought it was like super dope, right? I mean, like, Jamil, when is the last time you told yourself no completely to something and just like surrendered in it, and didn't feel good about it? When you give yourself that restraint, right? Yeah, tell me about your experience with vitamin N.
Vitamin N. Oh,
Yeah.
man. We diving right into it. I mean, it's a skill.
Right.
Like, I don't know why. Why is that? Why is it so hard? Why do we have a problem saying no sometimes? Like, you gotta, like, the only way to get good at it is to do it, But it's like,
Yeah.
I know somebody who's like a family friend who needs to hear this. she just doesn't say no to anything, and it's like she stretches herself thin. She has like multiple businesses. She also does mortgages, like on the side. She has like clients, and she's like on the board of like some nonprofits, and like she does a whole bunch of stuff. And
Yeah. Damn.
she's always taking on new things, and it's like, say no. Tell me no, and like
Mm-hmm.
when you when you um when you see like her as an example, when I see her as an example, I feel like the answer to that question, why is it so hard for us to say no, is because it's like we wanna give, It's like
Yeah.
like many of us have that kind of that inclination to just give, to others, to ourselves and
Keep
stuff. So it's like,
doing.
yeah,
Yeah, keep doing stuff, and until you realize, you're like, oh man, how did I get here? But
Mhm.
obviously you might not realize it until you're exhausted. But nah,
Yeah,
over.
yeah.
You said your cousin,
Family friend,
family friend
and it's
needs
like,
to hear about
yeah,
the work.
it's like I don't know. I think the more you do it, the better you get, and it's like, I don't know, man. Saying no
Yeah.
is probably like the first step for many of us to solving insert your problem here.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Just being able to take that break, man. Um, there's this. I used to watch Mr. Rogers when I was a kid, and Mr. Rogers used to have this um, this moment where he'd just basically say like, "Hey, here's a minute." And I don't know if I've talked about this. Have I talked about this on the podcast before?
So, Mr.
Oh man,
Rogers,
Mr. Rogers
I don't
giving
think
people a break.
about Mr. Rogers,
I
but
don't. Okay. Won't you be my neighbor? What's up? Uh, but no, he had a segment in a show where he would basically just tell kids like, "Hey, this is what a minute feels like, sounds like," and he would just pause for a minute, and he would just give you that. I mean, um, I think the beauty of saying no that I'm starting to realize is that you get to enjoy the things that you enjoy longer. You know, I'm sure your family friend wants to do all those things, and um, they're kind of maybe they're all equally the same as far as like the value that they might bring. But the beauty of me learning that if I say no to more things, that means I get to spend more time like designing something or just taking a break when I need to. But yeah, man, you
yeah,
gotta
what's
learn to
that
say no.
quote? What's that quote? Is where it's the richest person is the person that doesn't have the most but needs the least. It's like
Mm,
it's like knowing that you have it in you to say no in the first place. I feel like is like a weight off of your shoulders. It just lets you kind of move through things
yeah.
easier because it's like, I'm I know that I've got my own back. I'm gonna be easy on myself. You know what I mean? Because that's like what it comes down to is when you say, I mean, we've all been there where you say yes, and it's like immediately you're like, damn
Uh,
it. Damn it. Why did I say that? Why did I agree?
right.
What, and it's like that's what gets us is like doing something from the onset. You were just like, you know. So
Yeah.
when you say no, it's like you said, it I feel like we come up with a bunch of ideas or a bunch of reasons why it's a bad thing, but most of them
Hmm.
aren't even really the case, you know.
Yeah. I was gonna say maybe we just feel like I feel like some of us, or at least a lot of us, are if we're not careful, we kind of we end up operating in this like lizard. I don't know if it's like the monkey brain or the lizard brain or whatever.
I've never
This
the lizard brain. I've never heard of
oh
lizard
man,
brain. I knew you talking
never
about
heard
the
of
monkey mind. I heard the monkey mind.
there's also the lizard. I don't know which one does what. Apparently they're different. Maybe
Uh,
the lizard is like early on, and then it became the monkey.
the
Once it,
lizard brain.
yeah, it's another. It's
Which
another
one do
part of
you have, Jeffrey?
I don't know. I don't know. I think it's the lizard brain, man. um, but man, now you knocked me off of what I was saying. But oh no, now I remember.
Right, that's my job.
I remember. Okay, so yeah, like what I was saying. If we're not careful, we end up in this uh, state where we're kind of operating in this automatic type of way, where we're thinking that maybe this is something we have to do to survive. If I don't work hard, I won't eat. Something like that. That's what I'm thinking. Maybe that's the reason why I don't say no enough because I think I'm gonna run out of resources, and if I'm not doing something,
FOMO, fear of missing out.
yeah, I'm missing out, or sometimes I feel like I keep myself busy to to feel like I'm working, but
I think it
I
comes
don't know if
back
I
to, like I was saying, that feeling. It's like whether you say yes or no to something, it's like just pay attention to how you felt when you like started it. Like that should be the
am.
inclination. Or like even before you say it, you should know, like, do I really want to do this? Or like, even if I do, it's like, am I gonna feel am I gonna feel bad about it because I gotta get up early in the morning? Like I really want to watch this next episode of Avatar:
Mhm.
Last Airbender. Shout out, great show by the way. That new
Wait, the new one
live
or
action,
the live action one?
live
I
action,
heard I heard mixed
crazy.
reviews from it.
I like it. I
Mhm.
mean, they've
They did
stayed
a
pretty
good job,
close.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's what people were saying. I mean, like you could say, I think there was like this gif going around of Aang flying without his glider, and people were like,
yeah,
"How could you?" I'm like, "Yo, calm down, man.
yeah.
It's still
But
cool."
yeah, earlier this week I was in that position. It's like, damn, I gotta get up, but I want to watch another episode. But
Mm,
am I gonna watch this episode the whole time, being like, dang, I should have turned this off an hour ago? Am I gonna wake up
mm,
tomorrow morning and be like, dang, I should have turned that off 2 episodes ago? You know what I mean? It's not going
yeah,
anywhere, right?
true.
It's
Yeah,
like, you know, is it a discipline thing? Like vitamin N, taking your
I
vitamin
think
N.
so. Yeah, I think it's a discipline thing. That's and I'm now that I remember the quote, I feel like that's what he was kind of alluding to. It's like it teaches you discipline. Um, I'm trying to think. Was it vitamin N or vitamin? No, I don't think it was D. No, that would have been lame.
Vitamin D
That's
is
not
like
some. Nah, that's
vitamin D is a
lame.
real thing.
It was definitely vitamin N. But nah,
Vitamin
that's what he
D
was
is
talking
like
about.
from the sun.
Yeah, there's plenty of that in Kenya. Trust me, we're like right on the equator. Um, but nah, that's what it was. But it was probably like, yeah, that discipline is what you have to you have to kind of you have to watch for yourself if you're kind of losing, like if you're doing something just to do it, like you said, like watching an extra show, because I used to do that shit. I still kind of do it, whether it's like with video games,
Mm-hmm.
uh not stopping when you need to stop. It's like go to sleep, y'all.
Then you're saying no to yourself. I think
Yeah,
that's like where the discipline part comes in. You know,
yeah.
I I imagine I don't know. I think see, now you made me lose my train of thought.
No, that's fine.
So
I
now
can
we're
talk about
even.
mine. I got you. I've hypnotized you. You're not in my trance. Did you notice that we're matching?
Kinda inverted.
Yeah, yeah.
We're
Inverted. Yeah,
inverted.
yeah, yeah. That's cool. But nah, man, I'd like to share something else that I felt like I got to see. I've been going to a lot of art shows here in Atlanta, and every once in a while, I'll go to something special. So I went to this art show actually yesterday and saw this artist. His name is Ashley Anderson. We'll include the link in the bio or somewhere, right?
Show
um,
notes.
yeah, but basically, Ashley Anderson is an artist, and they did this project. It's a long form project where when they were working in a restaurant, 10 minutes before they had to start their shift, they would get a Coca Cola cup, one of those, the plastic, I don't know, paper ones, and they would just draw something in those 10 minutes, giving themselves that type of, that limit of creation. And obviously, if you're doing this every single shift, you have 5 shifts a week, maybe seven if you're a server. You always have that prompt. You like, I give myself this amount of time. I'm telling myself no after this. I'm good, or telling myself no to not do it, right before my shift. So after, I don't know how, there were so many cups when I saw them. There were all these different like skills, or not skills, sorry, details that went onto them. Some of them would be like, I saw this one where he drew a Pikachu, but then on the next day he redrew Pikachu, but it was like super graphic and like dark. So it's just like, it was super interesting seeing that, because sometimes that's all it is. Like, you just show up, right? You show up today. I'm gonna do my thing. That's the best I'm gonna do, and then that's it. And if I can't do it, I'll try again tomorrow. Um, but nah, that it was just super interesting. I don't know if you had any experiences like that where you saw kind of like a lapse of some work, and kind of it connected you closer to the work, just because you could see that somebody was doing something consistently, with their creative skills. Talk to me.
Yeah, I think I think we kind of talked about this last. We talked, and it takes a sip. What are you drinking? Just dropping gems, and then
It's ginger beer, man.
okay,
Boop,
that
boop.
looks a.
Yeah, man. It's non-alcoholic.
Mm.
It's just really good.
Yeah, I think we kind of talked about this last week a little bit, um, right? Where it's like um, being able to see that process shows you what the art really is. Like that's like the end process, or rather the end product. When you see it, is nice, but like it always amplifies it like tenfold when you
Hmm.
know the process too, because then you kind of look into the mind of the artist almost, and it's like, dang, like how they come up with this, like,
Hmm.
what were they think, like how did they think of this, like, to me that's always really cool to see.
Yeah,
um
for
is
sure.
like is works of art where you're just like, what were they like, how did they, and it's interesting because I think the I think the AI craze in
Hmm.
the beginning being like maybe a year or so ago, when like Midjourney kind of started really picking up. Everybody was putting in like crazy prompts, like chicken on a jet ski with, you know, gold teeth, and seeing what would come
Wolfman
up.
eating spaghetti. Do you
Yeah,
see those?
yes. Those like just these wild prompts, but I feel like those have kind of like, I feel like now people are actually like, oh, let me see if I can make some, stuff that I really want to make, but like with the AI.
Hmm.
But I don't know. I feel like what captured my that's what captured my attention in the first place. Anyways, for me was like seeing, like, going through Midjourney on Discord and seeing everyone's prompts, and seeing how
Yeah.
most of them were just people just like, no way it'll make this. No way, no way
Let's see how
no way
far we
it'll,
can push
exactly. Let's
it.
see, like, you know, but when you have an idea like that on your own, and you follow through with it, and like, or you see the end product of it, and you look at something and you're just like, what? Like,
Yeah.
how did they get here? And seeing that process, that time lapse, is always my favorite part, like behind the scenes. I mean, just getting into my field, what got me interested in it was seeing like a breakdown, like a
Hmm.
breakdown of the process, the green screens, and like what it looked like. Um, you got Chris Hemsworth in a costume in front of a in front of a green screen, and
Right.
then the final product, he's in this crazy fantasy land,
Yeah.
you know.
No, that's a good point. Yeah, I think um, that makes me, in my work at least, whenever we're putting together like a case study, um, to show the process of it. That's the, especially as a um, designer, that's what people look for in a portfolio. They're looking for, how did you come to the end part of it? It's like they don't really, you don't even have to be right. Most times, at least I've heard, like the managers don't care what the final thing looks like. They kind of just want to see how
True.
did you work on it this whole time, and
I
what are
wish
the
my
different
math
ideas.
teachers were like that.
Why would
Show me your work. It's like, come on,
yeah,
man. I just put it in the calculator. Why I got it's the inverse?
why I gotta redo the whole thing? It's
Yeah.
not, they gotta know.
Yeah, no, that's a
um,
good point though. It's like, yeah, when people who are trying to bring someone onto their team, that's really what you want to know. Is like, what was your
yeah,
process? What's your
like
creative
how do you
process? How can you bring out someone else's idea with that? Like, how can your creative process enhance our tools and what we already have in place, to kind of like bring out things in a certain way. We don't want to just bring someone on who's got, or bring several people on who all have great work and then come to find out their creative process is all pretty generic and not really
yeah,
like conducive to actually generating more cool stuff.
no, that's a good point. Yeah. um yeah, no, I feel like that's being able to explain your ideas in that way, um really adds to the project, like being able to talk about like your pitfalls and the things you've discovered. That's what I've learned, at least from you know my my career so far. Right, is that like whenever I'll be talking in front of people, they're just as interested in how you think as you
Mhm.
are working for them. So like sometimes if you might be working on a project and you're like, I just decided to do this thing differently, and maybe you thought that, oh, that wasn't relevant, or people who want to hire me don't really care about that. But I think if it's important to you and how you produce your final piece, as weird as it might be, it's like that's what people are looking for. They want to know like what's the story that you took to get to
And I think it's
like
funny because I feel like
on.
I feel like we I feel like we tell ourselves that we're like, what's the word? We're like reaching, like with our, because I think usually we're not really conscious, like, completely of like our motivations, right? When we made it, kind of thing. It's like maybe if someone asked you and you're thinking in hindsight, it's like, oh yeah, I was thinking this when I made this part, and like, on this, like the reason I used these colors was because I was in a very angry place, and like all these kind of like,
Mhm.
and then
Yeah.
you kind of ask yourself, is was it, am I BSing? Am I just kind of pulling that out of no nowhere? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But it's like it's real, right? Like I think I know, I think I've experienced that the most in composing music. Is like
Hmm.
I very much can kind of listen to some of the things that I've made in the past and actually like very much definitively know, like, yeah, I was feeling like, I remember I was feeling this when I wrote this
Hmm.
part, or like the reason I made this song was because I was feeling this, or I was going for this kind of vibe, and like these were the things that kind of inspired me. um so all that to say, when you're explaining your work, it's like, do it with like this confidence of like, no, yeah, I was feeling this, I was listening to this or reading this, and this is what inspired me at the time, this is how I was feeling. I was shooting for, something that kind of embodied this, that like Corey was mentioning when he was on with us a couple weeks ago about his pieces. about the seven deadly sins, and like he had this concept. And I think sometimes it's easy to feel like, oh no, that's not really why I made this. Is, is it like, do I have something here, or am I just kind of pulling things out of thin air? Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, I've never listened to someone tell me their creative process like that and thought like, oh no, that sounds ridiculous. There's no
Yeah.
way you were thinking that. Yeah.
Nah, man, that's a good point. Nah, I I definitely encourage everyone to, as you're starting off, I talk from a lens of like definitely a lot more of a junior headed headed towards hopefully like more being a mid.
You're
Um,
bro, you're
I know, but the thing is, okay, here's my thing. It is. I feel like it's too difficult for me to come up with the right answers. I want them to flow a little bit more seamlessly. Um, and I've been talking to like Osley with this and like trying to figure out like what can I do, because I like feel half confident. I feel like I I can do the thing, I can get the thing done, but I think if I'm being honest with myself, I feel like there's there's like a business side of what I do, a communication side of what I do that I don't think I learned while at SCAD, just because we're mostly like making things. And then when I was freelancing, when you're working with a client, you're the main person, right? They trust you to do everything, right? Um, but I think I've just learned that like that's the thing that I want to work on. I want to work on being an effective communicator. I want to become a better writer, because I think that's what's gonna, even if I'm a mid right now, that's what's gonna get me to a senior if I'm able to structure my thoughts in that
I
way.
guess it is those constructs, junior, mid, senior. I guess those really are like subjective to a certain extent. I think
Yeah,
really the only one I think really the only thing that isn't subjective is like a veteran, you know,
yeah, yeah. You can't
like
doubt them.
like a solid
And then the
veteran.
veteran,
It's like, yeah, this person's been in the industry 30 years, right? It's like,
yeah,
you know, you can't get around that. But
yeah,
yeah, junior, mid, senior, there's definitely areas where it could be very much just a subjective thing, but most importantly it's subjective to you, like you
hmm,
got to feel like you've been there, done that, like you've kind of seen enough to to call
yeah,
yourself a certain quote unquote level. And I think that's
yeah,
like, I think that's, I don't want to say silly, but I think it's really just a product of um the fact that you're doing like client work, that we're doing client work, is like
hmm,
you have to have something on your resume. It's got to be
right,
something there to kind of delineate your skill level. But in reality it's just kind of your own confidence in
yeah,
in things. Like I know for me it was, I think there was probably like a stretch during COVID where I was working on a project where at the end of the project, I just felt like, I like touched a bunch of different, like I was challenged in a bunch of different ways on that project, to where on
yeah,
the other side, I was like, I just felt confident, and like in knowing like, okay, if I get hit with this, I've dealt with it. If I get hit with this, I'm familiar with it, kind of thing. And I'm just thinking in my head like, is there anything that would like rattle me, you know what I mean, quote unquote,
mhm,
if it got put on my plate now, right? Whereas like prior to that project, or years before getting started, I definitely, was always like, okay, um, I know for sure that there's still plenty of stuff out there that I'm gonna like, okay, how am I gonna deal with this? I've never dealt with this before. If
Yeah,
I need to figure this out, right, I'm gonna, you know, but that's all just in your head.
yeah. It's all in your head, and I think it's like you said, when you feel that confidence that you could tackle something, that's the game changer, because then it's like, okay, whatever happens after this, that part of my anxiety doesn't exist anymore. I'm dealing with these problems now. I'm trying to solve these problems. Uh, I think that's a for me. I think that makes sense, and it's a logical thing for me to try and pursue, um, and consciously, like you said, like being confident is going to make the biggest difference when I feel like, oh, I'm a senior now. I'm a senior designer, but I'm looking forward to it. I'm glad that I have like good people around me. I got you. I got a bunch of good friends, a bunch of talented designers who are constantly pushing me to improve on where I'm at, because like I'm only like 2 years in, basically. I think working with like structure
Feel
as
like
far
it.
as
I
like,
mean, I guess technically,
yeah, technically,
I
yeah,
guess sure, technically, as far as
yeah.
consistent work, but I mean, still been,
I've
you
still been
still
doing
been doing
stuff.
this your whole life. Like
Yeah,
you talked about since what was it, middle school when
cool.
you
Yeah,
started the blog and
uh,
everything.
just making whatever I could. But I think where I'm at right now is that like there is like a very clear vision. I remember when you were telling me that, okay, like you did MPC, and then you're like, okay, now I want to go to New York and work in advertising. I feel like I'm starting to realize what MPC feels like. Kind of like I'm at MPC, like I'm kind of learning the strings, and I'm like, okay, now I'm thinking to myself, what's the next thing I want to do? And yeah, that's where I'm at. I feel like that's what's going to help me become the next version of myself, because now I'm like, okay, now I have this clear thing that I definitely want to do, because I've done this other thing and I'm like, I didn't like that thing that much, but like I'm going to pursue this next thing with like vigor and excitement, because I've been through the trenches. And
Trenches, what a word! I love that
in the
word because it
trenches.
really is like it really is that mentality when you're like on a project and stuff, the people around
Yeah,
you, because that's really like that's really amid a lot of turbulence in the industry right now. I think a lot of people would agree that it's like what we love about working is the people that we work with, right?
yeah,
It's not
absolutely.
necessarily I mean, the projects, can be cool. They can be great. Sometimes they can be meh, right? But by and large, it's like I like working on these things, collaborating with, like executing with these my peers, right? These other artists that are, that got into this for the same reason that I got into this.
Yeah,
So, you know,
yeah. And I think that's I feel like we we talked about some heavy things, but also
we dove straight
like,
into it. I didn't even ask you, like, I guess that's kind of my fault. I started off like, what you got for me? And you just dove straight. I mean, I I saw Dune yesterday. If you would ask me about my weekend,
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Hold on, hold on. Okay, hold on, y'all. Okay, we're gonna. What's up? What's up? Welcome, welcome, Jamil.
all right.
how was how was your weekend? How was Dune, man? Tell me about that, because we were talking a little bit about it before the podcast, and I feel like you had quite an experience uh, watching I think an amazing movie. So yeah, tell me about it.
I mean, it was good, man. It was good. Dune, little mini, like if we're gonna do a little uh mini movie review, light drop mini movie
Yeah,
review. It was good. I mean, visual effects were off the charts. I saw it in it was the first time I was in a theater that was packed in a while, and the
yeah,
movie was long. It was like 3 hours. So I'm not gonna lie. By around like
yeah,
the 2.5 hour mark, I was hot. It was hot in there. Like the bass, the bass was like going crazy in IMAX. So like
Man,
after like 2 hours of that,
yeah, it's
it
a
was like it's
headache.
hot. It's hot
Yeah.
in here. It's hot. It's loud. But the movie was good though. The movie was really good.
Okay.
I mean, it
Damn.
made me wanna. I went hard on the books like 2 years ago now, 2 or so years ago now, and I got halfway through the third one before I just kind of got like series fatigue. But now
Mhm.
after seeing this, I'm like, I think I'm ready to keep reading them. At least finish the third one, because
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm a big sci-fi. Like that's my genre. So
Hmm.
I just love that
Nah,
stuff.
yeah, that's that's good to know because I mean, hopefully I'll probably watch it towards the end of the hype because
Hmm.
I don't know if I'll be, you know, I'm not as committed to be able to. I don't know if I would have walked out if I would have paid for it, but
Yeah, you
now
wouldn't
that
have
I think
walked out
about
on
it,
this. Did you see the
yeah, I
first
wouldn't have walked. I would have sat there.
part
Yeah,
one?
I watched the first one. I thought it was cool. I thought like it was like great storytelling, great world building. I listened to a podcast like a few years ago, and they talked about Dune before we found out that there was going to be a movie, and that's as far
Uh,
as like, you know, that's as much as I've known about it. It's not like as extensive, but I knew about the books. But um, now I'm excited to see the second one for sure.
yeah, it's good. I
Yeah.
think what always stood out to me about Dune was I can't remember where I read this. It may have been in the book. I think when I bought it, it was a newer edition, and so I think there was like a foreword by
Hmm.
the author's son. Um, I believe. Don't quote me on that, but the gist was it was definitely his son that was talking about this. I just don't remember if he wrote a foreword or where I saw it, but he was talking about how when his father was writing these books, I don't think they were like super close. It wasn't like they had like a bad relationship, but they weren't super close as far as doing like a bunch of, father son stuff. And so I think he
Hmm.
went away to college um and stuff. Like his dad was writing these books like all these years. And he didn't really think of anything of it. And he was in college or had just like recently graduated college or something, and he like told somebody like who his dad was. And they're like, "Oh, is that the person that wrote like Dune, like the Dune books?" And I think this was even before they like blew up then. And he was just like, "Yeah, that's him." And this person that he was speaking to was just like, "Are you serious?" Like, but like,
What?
yeah, like flabbergasted. Like,
Yeah.
and that was kind of like the first time from his perspective that he realized that like, oh, my dad like made something that people, that people really like and are like
Yeah.
loving kind of thing. And I think it caused them to get a little bit closer in that respect. Again, don't quote me on this. I know that's like the gist of what I
Yeah.
had read was that this, he had found out like through asking, like kind of through happenstance that, dang, my dad made something that people are loving, that a lot of people really enjoy.
Hmm.
And it's just funny to me to think of all of the s- successful stories out there, regardless of it being a book, a movie, or even like a business person, who has a successful business now, right? Like every single one of those started off as something small, this project that no one had any eyes on. And
Yeah.
it's like I feel like it's easy to forget that when we live in this time now where there's this like instant kind of gratification, not from the standpoint of like impatience, but like literally like you can go on to TikTok or LinkedIn or something and like post something. You can post something to someone to see it.
Hmm.
And so what you try and recreate is the successful part first. You know what I mean? Like if you try and create a presence on Instagram, you look at the top Instagram accounts and you try and copy that, you know.
Yeah.
But in reality, you should be looking at like their first posts, you know, like
Mhm.
find your favorite YouTuber and look at their first videos, their you know their 10th videos like from years ago, and it starts to be clear like how much more accessible it is to start there because that's where you should start. It's not with all the
Yeah.
flashiness, all the stuff that comes with like that following already. It's like where should I start, you know?
Yeah.
And it's always just simple, right? Writing. I mean, he was probably you know just to think that this movie, you know, Dune Part 1, Part 2 that we've been seeing, crazy budget, crazy visuals, you know, actors, like everything was top notch. And at one point in time, it was just this story that this person wrote. His own
Yeah.
son didn't even know that he was writing it. And it's like,
Right.
you know, it's just, I don't know, it's just really cool for me to think about that. And it's like, you know, you look at, like I said, famous YouTubers or influencers or whatever. It's like you can go back and find all of their first videos too and see
Yeah.
you know, and see their roots kind of
Exactly.
thing before the flash.
That that reminds me. Sometimes I'll do that with people's portfolios. I'll use the web archive, web history thing, and
Oh,
I'll
the
look at
the
somebody's work.
Wayback Machine.
Wayback Machine, yeah,
Yeah.
that one. And that could be a way for you to, if you know, if you want to see the story of how somebody got from like this way of like designing or working animations or VFX or whatever, it could be a good way for you to kind of break down their process and learn from them. Um, because sometimes if you just look at, obviously like you said, the final video, you miss out on the story of how they got there, the problems they figured out, and you know, you can either look, I guess, looking at the web archive, or you can just know in your heart that like uh, you're doing the best equipment that you have, the best abilities that you have. I don't know where I was going with that. I was just
No,
saying,
I know what you're going with it. It's like,
yeah,
yeah, what
yeah,
you
yeah.
have right now
What you have is enough.
is what you need to get started because that's, you know, that's what they had at some
Yeah,
point to get started with. Yeah. I feel
yeah,
like that's a good exercise is to find someone, find an artist, find a you know, filmmaker or a director or an author, you know, that you really like admire or like, you know, strive to kind of have your work be, you know, someone who's got a big platform already or like, you know, gets a bunch of views every time they post something, whatever the case may be, and go back and look at their first posts, their first videos, their first, maybe there's, their student films. I don't know, you
yeah.
know, and it starts to be much more like, oh, I can start there, you know, I
Hmm.
can start there also.
Absolutely. Yeah, man. Uh, I think that's a good place to end things. Is is that the pod?
I think that's the pod for this week.
That's the pod.